Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Solari. I'm a full-time League of Legends caster, and this year I managed to turn my passion for gaming and esports into a career. But I remember how hard it was to start and how limited the available resources felt. So in this video, I'm going to go through the basics of tips, tricks and to-dos that you should do if you want to start your own casting journey for your favorite game. I will be covering the basics in this video, and then I will be releasing a separate in-depth video for each topic that we'll be talking about here. Moreover, there is gonna be timestamps in this video, so feel free to jump wherever you want. Please note that I work with League of Legends, so while the majority of what I'm gonna be talking about can be applied to any game, there might be some specifics for the game of your choice. Before we get into it, if you're thinking about pursuing a career in casting, you probably already know what exactly casters do, but let's go through some basics here. Casters are the voices behind any professional game. Our job is to provide commentary, explain to the viewers what exactly is going on, provide background information on teams, players, championship, and break down the game. In a usual game, you will hear two voices who split the duties between them, even though the degree varies between the regions. And these two are going to be the caster and the play-by-play or PvP caster. A caster is the brains of the cast. It is up to them to explain and analyze what is going on and provide context on a lot of technicalities, such as champion mechanics, item choices, synergies between champions, draft choices on the map, and much more. A PvP is the hype man. They sell the action to the audience, walk them through the biggest fights, both explaining what's going on and helping them not to get lost there, but also controlling the emotions of the listeners. Try to get your role preferences sorted out as soon as possible. Maybe you have a lot of technical knowledge of the game and you think the color will suit you much better, or maybe you control your voice and your energy so well that PvP just screams that it's the profession for you. Or maybe you're not sure, then try listening to professional casts differentiate the voices of the colors from the PvPs and see what you might like more. Now let's talk about what you'll need to get started as a caster, gain experience, and hopefully start landing some gigs. I will start with the hardware you might want to consider investing in. Then I'll talk about skills you need to work on, and finally how to put it all together and into practice. While you definitely shouldn't splurge on expensive equipment, there are some investments you might want to consider for getting started as a remote caster. This would be a microphone, a camera, and a light. Out of these three, a microphone is going to be the most important thing for you. A good microphone is going to be your best friend. It is a must-have if you might, because as a caster, you're pretty much selling your voice. So your voice and your microphone must become your main tool. I will be going through all the gear that I use and that my colleagues use and can recommend in a separate video, but here I can just tell you that I use an Elgato microphone, and honestly, I'm rather happy with this one. I've had it throughout the majority of this competitive season, and honestly, I'm yet to find anything to complain about. I don't like the software that comes with it, but just as a microphone, this is the perfect tool that I'm using all the time for my casts, and I think it sounds rather good, but you be the judge of it. It might also be a really good idea to get a leg for your microphone if you want to try casting while standing up, which is what a lot of casters, especially play-by-plays, practice. You will absolutely need something to be able to move your microphone up with you. Now, once you've chosen your microphone, this is time for the camera and the lights, and here you absolutely can go for a lower price range because, again, microphone is going to be your best friend. And while of course the looks and having the camera is going to be rather important, it's not as important as having your voice out, because for the majority of the time you will be heard but not seen as much. I can tell you already that casters use a variety of cameras. I personally have been using RazaQ for quite a long time, but just recently I've switched to using my phone, iPhone 12, as a camera, and I would say it works much better. Also, I have a full setup for the lights. Here I highly recommend that you go on YouTube and watch some videos about setting up the lights for streaming, because the setup is going to work for you while you're casting. I have two lights right in front of me. It works rather well. And the last thing that is not necessary but you might want to consider is getting a second monitor, because it's super useful to have something where you can just place all your notes and have them at a quick glance while you're casting a game. Now, skills. I will be talking about the most important ones, And if you've been watching the video so far, you probably can guess which one I will start with, and it's going to be your voice. Learn to take good care of your voice. This is going to be your best friend, and you're going to be using it for hours ongoing. So give it some relaxing hours. Learn how to give it a rest. One recommendation I can give you is, if you have an opportunity, go for vocal classes. Not for singing, but just for learning how to take care of your voice, learning how to do a proper warm-up before you start a casting session, and learning some proper breathing techniques, which I know a lot of play-by-play casters use, and it helps them a lot when you're in that screaming session in a very intense game. Now, some very general tips that I can give you is, as I just said already, do even a little warm-up before you start casting, even just to get your mouth, your face moving. This will help you a lot. Keep your water right next to you while you're casting. Sip it little by little. This is going to help your voice get a little bit easier time working for you. And get a chopstick with you. That is a rather interesting advice that I received from my colleagues when I was working in a studio. Have a chopstick right next to you, apply it on your lips. This is going to help you actually sound much better with your microphone. Your voice and how you use it might be a very big deciding factor for the audience, whether they decide to stay and watch the game or if they leave. So we need to practice a couple of things here, and this is going to be honestly a never-ending process of practicing your voice, but let's get some basics in. First and most obvious, you need to sound clear at all times. This is something that you need to practice, especially if you're play-by-play. That might be a tricky thing when you go into very big fights, when you need to unleash your inner Eminem or Jenny. This might be hard to follow, but this step just takes a lot of practice, to be honest. But even if you're a color, or even if you both are just going through a much slower paced game, you still need to make sure that it's very easy for your listener to understand exactly what you're saying at any given moment. So we must practice speaking slowly and clearly, and also quickly and clearly, of course. Filter out any filler words and take care of your vocabulary, especially if English is not your first language. Nothing to be ashamed of course. There are so many casters out there in Europe and everywhere on the world for whom the language in which they're casting is not their mother tongue. But still, make sure you pay attention to this step. And the best step here would be to record yourself talking over a game, and just ask some friends around you to listen to how you're talking and give you feedback, not about whatever is going in the game. They don't even need to play the game, to be honest. Just have them give feedback about how you speak, how easy it is for them to understand what exactly you're talking about, and how engaging you sound. Another thing, and again, it is definitely easier said than done, but pay attention to your energy levels. At this step, I highly recommend you get yourself a casting buddy and practice this step with them. And I will talk a lot more about casting with somebody and about the synergy later in this video. But when it comes to energy levels, you need to understand how important it is to hype up the audience about whatever is happening in the game. But also keep in mind how your caster is going through the game, how they are operating their own hype levels. It might be a good opportunity for you to learn to adjust to how they are going through the game. If there is a big team fight and your PvP has been screaming at the screen for a couple of minutes straight, don't just drop it there. Don't let this energy go to waste. Pick it up immediately and continue with the same pace that your co-caster has been giving until now. Or maybe it's time to take it and slow it down a little bit, because you know that nothing is happening right now, so it's time to break down everything and analyze it. This is a very important tool that you have in your hands, or rather in your voice, controlling how the audience is feeling about what's happening on the screen. This is something that honestly just comes with a lot of practice and a lot of feedback, but again, that's something we'll talk about later. Now, you probably can't call it a skill, but it's definitely equally as important as your voice, and it's your knowledge. As a PvP, you must know the game very well. As a color, you must know the game exceptionally well. As one of my mentors said, you need to eat, sleep, and breathe League. Just soak information every spare minute that you have. Learn to absorb it and to categorize it for an easy access for you. This is going to help you so much, especially as you're just starting as a caster, to have all your information stored up in one place, always available for you whenever you're casting a game. I will be going through my own setup in details in a separate video, But very quickly, what I use is I always have my iPad with me on hand. Whenever I'm watching any educational video or any cast of any game, I always have my quick notes with me. So whenever there is something that I didn't know before or something that I really want to remember, I take a quick note and I save it for myself for later. And after that, when I have some spare time, I go into my huge Excel spreadsheet where I have everything categorized and I have filters added, so whenever I'm in the game or right before the game and I need to quickly check something, I can do it just on the fly. And you don't need to have an iPad, obviously, that's just something I use for my own convenience. A simple notebook will absolutely do the trick, just something where you can take a very quick note on the go. Now, here are the best sources for actually learning the information. Many professional casters, coaches, and players will have their own YouTube channels where they will go through so many technical things. It's just an open book for you. Go on and study. All this content is out there for free. Coaching. Honestly, finding coaches to mentor you can be one of the best things that can happen to you professionally. And I'm talking both about just coaches. So, for example, somebody who will go with you through the solo queue things like champions, lanings, and stuff that you can actually go on and practice yourself. Or maybe it's a team coach who will go with you through the team structures, how the team thinks and operates as a single unit on the battlefield. Or we're talking about more of a mentor, getting a professional caster to go out and help you. And you'll be surprised how many of them will actually be willing to do so. Going back to YouTube again, one-trick ponies are going to be such a great source for learning champion specifics. Self-learning. Here is the thing that I was doing in the very beginning of my casting career and still do to this day from time to time. Turn on a professional game. Don't listen to the commentators, that's not what we're focusing on right now. Just watch the game very closely, pay attention to what's happening everywhere, then pause the game at any given random moment. Look exactly to what's happening with the lanes, with the minimap, with the items, everything, and ask yourself a simple question. What is going to happen in this game in the next 5 minutes? Answer it to yourself, maybe even write it down if you want. Unpause the game and watch closely for the next 5 minutes and compare what's happening in the game to what you were thinking would happen. And then repeat it a couple of times throughout the game. This will help you so much to see little patterns here and there, just to learn what exactly to focus on and what to expect from the game. And here is a great tweet from Tash. She's just listing so many great resources. Feel free to pause the video, read through it, and go check them out because this will help you so much. I use the majority of them myself. Now it's time to get it rolling. Let's practice, gain experience, and seek feedback. Now, if you're asking yourself, how do I even get started? Where do I start? My answer is, you just go and do it. Now, here is how I did it, and feel free to steal my idea. You just go on and cast over the existing games. Go on YouTube, pick a game that you like, and cast over it. This is the step where you take a casting buddy with you because it's a little bit hard and scary to go on to this adventure solo. But you have to get started somewhere. So we take the games that already exist, remove the voice, cast over it, and a very important step, you record whenever you're doing it. You don't just let practice casts go into waste. What is important here and what we need to focus on is understanding the pace of the game and understanding how you need to go with it. We start from the very beginning, always on the draft or even a little bit before it to maybe, give a little background on what's going on. Going through the drafts, going through the game right after it, and having a little conclusion afterwards. But what's most important is from the start of the draft to the very end of the game. This is what we need to cover in one go. No pausing, no rewriting little pieces. Here, we just do everything as if we were casting a game that is going live. This will get you much more familiar with the stages of the game, with what to focus on and what pretty much to expect from them. And after that, we record it all, again, we save it. Why was I talking about a casting buddy? Because while we're getting familiar with the game, this is also the moment when we get familiar with our co-caster. Not just the person you're casting with, even though that might be important as well. You need to get that synergy going. And what I mean by that is that your synergy is actually going to be one of the biggest entertainment parts for the audience. So it's super, super important that we learn that cast is a dialogue. Always. There are two people casting it. They don't just tell the viewers what's going on, they need to have something going on between them as well. Learn to adjust to the energy of your co-caster, understand when you are the one who should be leading the conversation, see when it's time to drop jokes at each other and go all funny and silly mode, and when it's time to go all serious. Now, remember that I told you that you need to record all your practice casts? There are two big reasons for that. And one of them is that we need to start building a portfolio if we ever want to start landing actual gigs in this industry. And the best time to start it is right now, when you're at the very beginning. It's going to be equally nice and important to show your potential employer the progress you've made. And also, it might help you get discovered, like what happened with Dr. Brillman and I. So feel free to upload all your practice casts onto your YouTube channel. And of course, right after that, promote them on all your social media, because if you want to be a caster, you need to be on social media and you better be rather active there. If you want to start casting over the actual live games, how do you find them? Well, let me tell you, most of the times the answer to how do I find this or that in casting is going to be social media, and especially Twitter. The things you want to be looking for is local tournaments or just any small tournaments, and Division 3 teams. Usually, the lower divisions will not have an official broadcast of their games, and very often the teams will be looking for somebody to broadcast them and to cast over them, because they want to go through their games after they're done to see what they did, what they could have done better. You know how it works. It's beneficial both for them and for you. Small local tournaments can be held online or offline. Take a look at your area, see if you have any of those happening around you, maybe in some, internet cafes or stuff. Go there and ask directly, hey, do you want a caster? I want some experience, you might want a caster, we might have a deal here. Honestly, in general, asking is a very good idea. Go on your social media, be vocal there. Asking can sometimes lead you to job opportunities. Now listen, I saved one of the biggest and most important things to the last, and this is what you will need to be doing constantly if you ever want to improve, and this is seeking feedback as much as possible, as often as possible. You'll be surprised with how many casters will gladly have a vote review with you. But Sully, what is a vote review, you might ask? Well, let me give you an answer immediately. This is when you take the recording of your game. Remember, we were recording all our practice casts, right? We take that recording, we go to a more experienced caster and we say, hey, can you please watch this whole thing with me and tell me exactly step by step, point by point, what I do right and what I do wrong. You sit down together, you take notes, you learn, you be a very good listener and learner. Remember, it's also an opportunity to have a dialogue. Feel free to ask questions, feel free maybe to disagree sometimes with some points. But overall, the idea is you are there to absorb and learn. It's like being evaluated, but the person evaluating you is actually there to genuinely help you grow. All you need to do is just have the practice cast and go on and ask. Now, we're done with the very, very basics. Again, of course, there will be a separate video for each of these topics where we'll go into details, into everything that you need to know and how you can make yourself a better caster, especially if you're just starting your journey. But in the end of this video, let me give you some general tips from me and from a lot of my colleagues. Get used to listening to your own voice. I know it's a hard one, especially for me. Honestly, I'm still not fully used to it, but it's so crucial for you. Remember, we need to be always seeking feedback and we need to be doing those vote reviews, and you just want to be reviewing your casts by yourself. So get used to listening to your voice. It's a big one. Find people whose opinion you value, especially, of course, the professionals in this field. And always ask for their feedback whenever possible. Most of the time, they will be happy to help you. But at the same time, ignore the chat. Especially if you're casting live on Twitch or anywhere else. Don't look at the chat while you're live. Just don't. It doesn't exist. Trust me, this is not worth it. This is going to ruin everything for you immediately. At the same time, some casters say that it's important to look at the chat when you're doing vote review to see what people say, what people think about how you're casting. Might be different for you, but what's most important, while you're casting, the chat doesn't exist. Take examples, but stay unique. This is such a big thing. Of course, it's so easy to get influenced by the big names out there, but nobody wants a carbon copy of somebody who's already successful. Nobody needs second quick shot. Nobody needs second medic, but somebody out there might just be needing you. Of course, find out what makes these people successful. Maybe see some things that you could try to implement in your own style, but also at the same time, find what makes you, what makes your own style unique, and stick to these things. Get people invested by being invested. I feel it's an obvious one for everybody who is switching to casting career, but you need to genuinely be invested in what's happening on the screen. This game must be your passion, and believe me, if it's a genuine one, your viewers will always feel it. Your job is not just commenting what's happening on the screen. You need to explain the viewer why it's exciting and why they should keep watching this game and cheer for either of the teams. Last one, again, a very big one. Confidence. Be confident. You cannot have everything as you're just starting the career, and honestly, even years after, you most probably still will not have everything what it takes, according to your own opinion, to be the professional caster. Go into it with a confidence. If you started it, there is already something in you that will help you. Maybe it's just the passion for the game. It might just be enough to get you going. Yes, it's going to be scary in the beginning. Everything is going to be new. It's a lot of responsibility, but you'll get through it. And the more you practice, the more you work on it, the more you work on your skills and yourself, the better and the easier it's going to get. Trust me. This will be it for today. Thank you very much for watching my video, and another reminder that I will be releasing a separate in-depth video for each topic that I have covered in this video. And also remember that if you want any help, if you have any questions about starting your career in casting, there are my socials down below, so reach out to me and I will try to help you. Good luck in your casting journey, and we'll see you somewhere, I hope.